this computer. There we go. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is the first in what we hope will be a series of events by LGBT Olim to explain the various LGBT organizations that exist in Israel, why they exist, where they came from, and what their purpose is. So this week we are very privileged to have Dr. Gil Fishhof. He is the coordinator of Yesh Im Mi Ledaber, which is the LGBT support line in Israel, which is run by the Aguda, Israel's national LGBT association. Okay. So what I'd like to do is hand over to him. He's going to tell us a little bit about himself and about the organization, how he got started, what his involvement is. Hold on 1 second. And yeah, so with no further ado, I'll hand over to Gil.
Thanks, Roy. Hi, everyone. I was afraid that it will be just a date between me and Roy, and no one will turn up to hear about the support line. But I'm really happy to see all of you. So thank you for coming and expressing interest in the support line. I will tell a little bit about myself and then about the support line. And then I thought that we'll open the floor to question, and I will try to see what are the issues that interest most of you. I can speak about the support line for hours. So I'll try to engage whatever interests you all. I will start by saying thanks to Roy for organizing this and for caring for so many years. Really, Roy and I go a long way back in collaborations, and for caring for so many years about the English-speaking LGBT community in Israel. That's really important. So thank you, Roy, for inviting me. Okay, so my name is Gil, and I'm a doctor, but opposite to what many people think, my area of expertise is not psychology or social work, but I'm a specialist in art history. I'm an art historian. I specialize in medieval art history. I teach at Haifa University. So I have a kind of weird and mixed life, I would say. In the morning, I teach about cathedrals and churches and Gothic sculpture and things like that. And in the afternoon, I deal mostly with the LGBT community and the things that bother LGBTQ plus people there are. And unfortunately, there are many things who bother LGBTQ plus people. So I'm 42, single. I live in Petah Tikva now. In the recent year, I've moved to Petah Tikva. And I've been volunteering in the support line in Yesh Im Mi Ledaber for something like 17 or 18 years, something like that. It's so long ago that I started that I don't really remember when it was. I vaguely remember that it was after I finished my first degree, but I'm not sure exactly which year was it, but something like 17 or 18 years. And in the last decade, actually, I've been the coordinator of the support line. And that's been quite a challenge. So what I would like to start with is by telling you a little bit about telling you a little bit about the support line and about where it is situated, not physically, of course, but in the framework of the Aguda and the LGBT structure of organizations, the LGBT community organization in general. And then, as I said, we'll open the floor to questions. So, Yesh Im Mi Ledaber, someone to talk with. Actually, its beginnings are a bit vague. I know several people who claim to have made the first who have answered the first telephone call to Yesh Im Mi Ledaber, to the support line. And the thing is that it kind of grew or developed organically. What happened is that, you know, for many, many years, during of course, the late 70s, the Aguda was founded in 1975, and it was for many years, for decades, we should say, it was the only LGBT organization in Israel. There were Choshe and Iggy, or the other organization, the Proud Houses, came much, much later in the early 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s. So we are talking about at least 20 years that the Aguda was the only organization. And what happened is that people would just call the office of the Aguda and start talking about the things that bother them, about their problems, about their concerns, because they had no one to talk to. And whoever was in the office or at the earliest, the Aguda was operated from the private houses of its founding members. So they just picked up the phone and answered without training, without any specific methodology, sorry. And what happened is that around the early 90s, the Aguda realized that it should be more organized, and Yesh Im Mi Ledaber was established. Out of the need, out of the daily reality, there was a support line active at these years. It was called the White Line, Hakav Halavan, and it was not run by the Aguda. And the two lines worked in parallel for several years, and then they merged together into the unified line, which is called Yesh Im Mi Ledaber. Actually, the official name is Yesh Im Mi Ledaber Hakav Halavan. Yesh Im Mi Ledaber, someone to talk with, the White Line. But that's just the way it remained. And so from, let's say, the middle of the 90s, Yesh Im Mi Ledaber is operating, and it evolved continuously. And when I say evolved, I mean that throughout the years, we were able to make it more organized, to offer a wider range of services to the community, ways to engage, to contact the support line, and of course, the things that we can offer with the Aguda and the psychosocial services of the Aguda are much more developed now than they were, of course, 20 years ago, as the Aguda in general and the community in general developed as well. So this is kind of I would say, the mythology, if you want, of how the support line came to being. And today, as I said, I am the coordinator, but we are actually two coordinators at the moment. And throughout the last 15 years, we always tried that there will not be only one coordinator, but at least two. Sometimes, for some periods of time, we were three. Because it is a demanding task, and we encounter difficult, sometimes alarming situations on a daily basis. So it's good to have someone to talk with when you are coordinating the support line. And at the moment, there are 55 to 60 volunteers at the support line. And I'm saying 55 to 60 because sometimes, you know, being in the support line, I always tell the volunteers, especially the new volunteers, that it is like a family. We encounter situations which can be very difficult, and you develop a sense of a connection to being a volunteer in the support line that really unites all the volunteers. So what happens is that we have most of the volunteers stay active for 4, 6, 8 years. And this is very unusual when you compare it to other organizations. The cycle is much more rapid. You have people volunteering for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then, but we have a lot of volunteers staying for many years, which is very, very good. But this means that if, let's say, you are a volunteer for 5, 6 years, and then you would need a few months to regain your strength, to take a little break, to refresh yourself, and then join. So this is why we have a status of that says, how do you translate it? That is off duty. He's not quit being a volunteer, but he's not an active volunteer at the moment, he or she. So circa about 55, 60 volunteers. And what is important to realize about the volunteers and about the support line is that our volunteers are not trained professionals in the, let's say, health or mental health or services of psychology. They are not psychologists, they are not social workers. Well, some of them are, but they are not, they don't have to be. They are just people from the community, from the LGBTQ community, who went through a very rigorous training program in order to be able to volunteer in the support line, but they are not professionals in, as I said, psychology, medicine, or so and so on. And this is very important to understand, because this is what distinguishes the support line from, let's say, going to a psychologist. If you take the name of the support line, someone to talk with, מישהו, יש עם מי לדבר, יש עם מי לדבר, there is someone to talk with. The emphasis is about talking, is about being there for someone. And I think this is the core, the raison d'être, as they say, the reason of being of the support line. We are not offering therapy. We are not offering treatment or psychological treatment. We are the main, I think, thing that the support line does is offer to people a place to which they can call, and in which they can share their experiences, the daily experiences and the dilemmas, and what they get is an empathic, interested, sensitive response, but not therapy. And this is a very important distinction that has to be made between, let's say, the psychosocial services, which I will talk about a little later, and someone to talk with. So, as I said, we have about 50, if English is not my mother's tongue, so if I've tried to make a point and you feel that it's not clear, so stop me and ask, and I will try to explain better. Okay. So as I said, we have 55 to 60 volunteers, and all the volunteers go through a very rigorous training program, which takes which takes 5 months, 19 meetings of 4 hours. And what we do in this is, by the way, the longest training in any community organization in the LGBTQ community. And what we try to do in the training program is 2 things. One of them is to introduce to our volunteers the wide range of subgroups and communities which are included in our big family, in the big LGBTQ community. We have so many sub-communities, and so we try to introduce to our volunteers all the different, all the variety that there is. For example, one session will deal with LGBT, religious LGBT, Jewish religious LGBT, דתיים and חרדים, ultra-Orthodox or just religious. And another session will deal with gender identity and transgender people and queer identity. Another will deal with Arabim, yes, Arab LGBTs in Israel, and the different, I would say, stages of the life cycle. We will have a session, a meeting about youth and about, for example, parents to LGBT people. And we will have a meeting about, actually the last meeting a week and a half ago was about a senior citizen LGBT or old LGBT, elderly LGBT. And so, and what we try to do in each of these meetings is not to talk about, but to talk with. That is, to each of these meetings, we have a representative from the specific community who will come and who will tell us his personal story, his or hers, and raise some of the dilemmas and some of the issues with which this specific community will engage in. And I think one of the most beautiful things about the support line is that we enjoy really in tremendous cooperation from all the LGBT organizations and groups. And I've organized 6 training courses for new volunteers in the last decade. And I have never heard no when I ask someone to come and present and to talk with the new volunteers, with the future volunteers. Never, ever. And that's really, really heartwarming. So, for example, when we dedicate that specific meeting of the training program to LGBT religious person, we will have a representative from Chevruta, which is the organization of men, and we'll have a representative from Bat Kol, which is the organization of the female religious, lesbian and bisexual, and so forth. And the meeting about transgender will be in cooperation with Ma'avarim, which is the organization of the transgender, and so on and so forth. And so it's really a long and demanding, but very interesting, I must say, training program. And the other thing that we try to do in the training program is to teach the volunteers the methodology of what it is a support call to a support line. It's not therapy. It's not the caller is not expecting to be on the psychologist in the psychologist room, and it is not on one hand, and on the other hand, it's not just a conversation between 2 friends. It's something in between, and there is a specific methodology to how to do that, how to make this environment that we try to establish between the caller and the volunteer, how to make it a safe environment, how to make it easier for a volunteer to share things that maybe he or she hasn't ever shared with anyone else in the world. How do you do that? And so we half the time in the training program is dedicated to learning these skills and the many dilemmas and ethical questions involved in conducting such a conversation. As you can understand, we are in the middle of the 2020 class of new volunteers. The training program begins once every 2 years. And the reason for that, that it is only once in 2 years and not, for example, every year, is that it is such a huge operation that we just cannot make it every year. We start working on the training program for about 3 to 4 months before it begins, even 5 months, because you don't just join the training program. There is a recruitment process and miunim, how do you say that? Interviews and so we have to make sure that the future volunteers are will be the right people for the job and that they know what they get into. So we conduct a very thorough recruitment process. So, as I said, this is not someone to talk with is not therapy, and it is not talking with your friends. And what I've learned, and this is interesting, I've been thinking about it a lot in the last, I would say, year. What I've learned after so many years of volunteering in the support line and coordinating the support line, I think what strikes me the most is the immense power and immense importance of just listening, And can you hear me well? Because an announcement popped that's saying that I have low system resources. Roy, am I clear? Is it?
It's clear enough, yeah. It's a little bit funny at times, but yeah, we can understand you completely. That's fine. I can hear you.
Okay. I'll try to, I don't know, move a little bit to, I don't know. Okay, so as I said, for example, sometimes we can speak with people who are in very serious, I would say, needs in all the aspects of, for example, even food or shelter for the night, or the daily basic needs. Yes, and we try to help and we try to connect them to the different welfare solutions and the different organizations in the community that can help them and so on and so forth. But what we see again and again, that it is not, if a person is in need of food or in need of shelter, it doesn't mean that it is not important for him or her that someone listens to him and acknowledge his or her feelings and listen to their stories and listen to them sharing their pain and their difficulties. This is, as I would say, as important. And we see it again and again. And actually, one of the challenges that we have in the training program with new recruits is that new volunteers want to feel that they did something, that they helped. A caller, a person who called the support line. And how, if you're a new volunteer, what will make you feel that you have done something good, that you were able to help, that you have produced something specific, something concrete, that you have contacted this person to, I don't know, to the LGBT center in Jerusalem, the open house, or in Haifa, or that you have recommended a group or something like that, something concrete. And we have to work very, very, very hard to convince the new volunteers that these things, these solutions are important, or these options are important, but making the person speak about himself, share his emotions, share his thoughts is not less important, sometimes even more. So it's quite a challenge, and it takes time for the new volunteers to kind of to settle in and feel comfortable with conversations who are just, you know, just the listening, not saying much even so much as listening. And so this is basically what we do. And you know what? I will open. I think I've talked enough. I can keep on talking for hours, but I think I will open the floor for questions, and let's see what would you like to know. I'll be happy to answer and to engage every aspect you would like to ask about the support line. So I open the floor.
Cool. So if anyone has any questions, you've got the choice. You can either type them into the chat window. Just make sure that it's sent to everyone. You can't hear me? Hello?
Now I can. Yeah. So
excellent. So I'm just going to say, if anyone has any questions, you've got a couple of choices. You can either type them into the chat window and just make sure that it's sent to everyone. Unless, of course, you have a private question. If you want to stay anonymous, you can send it directly to Gil. You can select him from the list and just send it privately to him. Or you can unmute yourself and ask a question through your microphone. Your choice is yours. Okay, we've got a couple of questions coming in. You can see those. Yes, Gil?
Okay, so I see couple of questions. Okay, so the first question from Chava. Hi, Chava. How does one sign up to be a volunteer? So the easiest way is just to write an email to the support line, to the hotline, and say, I want to be a volunteer. We will write you in the waiting list for the 2022 training program. And we will contact you in about a year and invite you to the recruitment process and to the evaluation, let's say, the evaluation process. And actually, you know, we are really blessed because people want to volunteer in the support line. At the moment, we already have about 30 or 45 people waiting in the waiting list to the 2022 training program. Unfortunately, it is not possible at all to volunteer in the support line without taking part in the training program. And sometimes I get telephone calls saying, Gil, I'm a psychologist, I'm a trained professional, you know, I do this for a living, I want to volunteer. And we have to say no, because a psychologist would try to implement his methodologies in the conversation, and we are not offering therapy, we are offering something completely different. So this is the way. Write us an email, and actually we have people now in the current training program who have waited, whose names have been in the waiting list for over a year and are now in the training program and will be great volunteers in about 3 months' time. If you want to know, we are actually in these hectic days, we are running the training program via Zoom, which poses a lot of challenges. This is the current class is of 36 new volunteers. So this is a large training program. As I said, this is a very intensive investment by us, by the coordinators. So what we do, the classes are very big because these volunteers they are our volunteers for the next 2 years at least. So it's kind of a wave. We have every 2 years we have an influx of about 30 new volunteers, and then we wait another 2 years and so on. So another question, Isabella, what, if any, pushbacks has your organization gotten from anti-LGBT people? This is an interesting question. Well, from time to time, we get calls from anti-LGBT people who call and say curse words to the volunteer and yell at him and so on. And this happens from time to time, not so often, but it happens. Actually, about 2 years ago, there was an attempt. Someone has invested a lot of money in trying to shut down the support line. Someone installed computerized system. I'm not a specialist in this field that sent tens of thousands of SMSs to people, just random people, with the message that said, your mother is looking for you, she's in trouble, call this and this number with the number of the support line. So suddenly, we instead of getting a number of calls each evening we got like 200 calls, 300 calls. And the result is that the people who actually needed us these evenings could not get through. So, of course, we filed a complaint to the police. Nothing happened with that, big surprise. But we had to resolve it in a technological manner. We reprogrammed the system, so we resolved the problem using technology. But so this is I think the biggest attempt that I can remember in the last 10 years to hurt or damage the support line. Chav again, how long is the training? 5 months, about 5 months, between 19 and 20 meetings and 4 hours each meeting, always in the evening, from 6 to 10 in the evening. I want to apologize for joining late. Maybe you cover this. How do you fundraise? Welcome, Aaron. I have not covered this. And the thing is, we don't fundraise at all. And maybe this is a good time to explain that Yesh Im Mi Ledaber is not an organization. I mean, we are not a legal entity. If you go, we are not an NGO, we are not a company, we are actually part of the Aguda. The Aguda is the Israeli National LGBT Task Force or Association, is the legal entity. And we are a department within the Aguda, or a project, if you want to call it. The Aguda conducts many projects. There is the legal service, there is the report center, what was known as the Nirkat Center, and now it is called the Report Center, that offers help to victims of LGBTQ phobia. There is the department that helps refugees, LGBT refugees, and many other departments. So Yesh Im Mi Ledaber is a department within the Aguda. So we don't do fundraising. The Aguda does the fundraising for the organization as a whole, and we get the Aguda finances our needs, both the office space that we use, the computers, the telephone operator, which is quite sophisticated, and the most importantly of all, the salary for the social worker who is giving us the professional guidance and backup. So the Aguda does the fundraising. Actually, I will tell you that a few months, maybe a year ago already, there was a very nice initiative by a charming young man by the name of Roy Dolev, who is a singer and who loves musicals, and he and a couple of other volunteers produced the musical Lakaj of Fall, Kluva Lizim. It's very famous. About it was shown for several evenings in Neve Tzedek, and all the revenues from this musical, they donated to the support line. So this was, but it was not us organizing this and so on, but this was a very charming tribute to the support line. Another question from Russell. The movie with, yes, exactly. The movie from Robin Williams, La Cage aux Folles, exactly. But what? Birdcage, yeah. About the guys that own the drug lab, exactly, that one, exactly. But the movie is based on a musical, or yeah. So, and it was very, very charming, and we actually continue to use all through the last year the donation in order to publicize the support line, so that more and more people will know about the services. I think if you want to know what are the difficulties, the major difficulty that we encounter, it is to make the helpline known to members, the various communities and sub-communities that are part of the LGBT communities. And when I meet someone, I don't know, in some social connection or something, and I ask, have you heard about someone to talk with? And he says, no, never, then I feel really sad, because unfortunately, even after 30 years of being active in the field, and even though I will tell you, there is not a day in the last decade that I haven't thought how we can get the message through. Really, I wake up with this and I go to sleep with this. Even after so many years, there are still people who have not heard of us and who could have used this option and benefit from it. And I think the other obstacle that we encounter is that people think that contacting a support line or helpline should be in one of two cases. One, if they have a major breakthrough, they are about to kill themselves, so this is the only time that they would call a support line. So it has to be dramatic, the end of the world, and so on and so forth. And the other thing is that people think the support line is for teenagers who are not sure if they are straight or bi or so on. So if that the support line is only for people who are not certain about their sexual orientation or gender identity. And the truth is that there's nothing further from the truth than these two assumptions. First of all, the subject, we talk about everything. I mean, most of the calls to the support line don't engage with dilemmas or uncertainty about sexual orientation or gender identity. Most of the people, we have these calls. Yeah, I'm 17 and I've fallen in love with my classmate. Am I gay or am I lesbian? We have these calls, but most of the calls deal with body image, loneliness, experiences in the virtual world, the dating applications, and so on and so forth. Relationship with the family, parenthood. So this is one thing that we try to make to get the word out, that you can call us even if you are out of the closet for 20 years and you are gay and happy with that, and life makes us encounter so many dilemmas and so many points that just sharing is beneficial, that the support line is an address for that. And as I said, the other thing is that it can be just, the day-to-day difficulties. It doesn't have, people don't have to wait until suicidal in order to contact the support line. And unfortunately, I hear a lot of people that says, no, I'm okay, I can cope, I can push through, so I shouldn't call the support line. And that's not true. I mean, really we are there for the whole range of emotions and dilemmas, and it doesn't have to be a big drama, for example. Wait, there are more questions. Can you tell us a little more about Meerkat's reporting? Wow. This is a different department in the Aguda. Actually, it is interesting because I was the first manager of the Meerkat Center, and I ran the Meerkat Center, the reporting center, for 5 years, for its first years of existence. And the reason that I was the manager for 5 years is not, well, first of all, because I was willing to do that. That's one reason. But the other reason, can you hear me? Because suddenly the picture got kind of blurry.
We can hear you. That's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. So, but the deeper reason is that we learn to realize that LGBT phobia events have a very serious effect, emotional effect. So what the Meerkat Center tried to do is engage both with the actual concrete help if someone needs help with the police or legal assistance or any other kind of advocacy, and also to offer just I would say the listening skills and the empathic skills of the volunteers of the support line. So this is why I became the first manager. But I think this is this should be the subject of a completely separate meeting. They have a great coordinator now, and Moran, who can speak for the whole evening.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So maybe it's a naive question, but can you explain for Ola Hadasha what is the situation with LGBT in general in Israel? Can you hear me?
You were blurred at the middle of the sentence. What is the situation with the
LGBT community in Israel in general? How is the situation here? I want to understand. I want to learn about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elena. I will answer in a way that will also connect your question to the helpline, to the support line. Okay, because you said you were talking in the singular, and I want to talk in the plural. What do you mean? You said, what is the situation? And I would say, what are the situations? Because in the plural, because the community is very, very, very diverse. And I would say the situation of, for example, a transgender girl in 17 years old who is disconnected from her family is completely different from a 40-year-old I don't know, a woman in Tel Aviv who's married to her woman partner and has 2 children. And the concerns are completely different. The challenges are completely different. The struggles are completely different. And so I would say, if I have to ask what is the situation is diverse. Okay? And you can see this, for example, when you see that there are tensions, for example, in the recent 2 or 3 years, you can see that there are tensions in regard to the question, what should be the main focus of the efforts of the Aguda? If the Aguda is the national LGBT task force, what should be the emphasis that it puts? Should it be, for example, about adoption or marriage equality? Or should it be about safety for transgender women who suffer a lot of violence. So, and you can see these arguments and these questions being raised when, and good, it's good that they are being raised. Whenever the Aguda launches a campaign or something, a new campaign or a new struggle or something like that. Your question is great in regard to the support line, because it brings to the front, I think, a very big challenge for us, for our volunteers. What does it mean? It means that if I am, for example, I am a gay man, I'm 40 years old, I don't have children at the moment, and I get a telephone call if I'm answering to the calls this specific evening, a certain evening, and I get a telephone call from, let's say, 17 years old transgender girl, or for example, 75 years old grandmother who's married to a man. She's been married to him all her life, and she has 3 children and 5 grandchildren. Yeah. How am I supposed to be able to understand the different experiences and different dilemmas of all these different people who have extremely varied stories and extremely diverse situation? So, but one of the challenges and the things that we try to teach our volunteers to do, and it is very difficult, this is a big challenge, is to not to impose themselves on the caller, but to be open to hear the story of the caller itself. For example, if I get a call from a transgender person, immediately I project on that person all the associations, thoughts, stereotypes that I have about transgender people, about elderly people, about single people, about married people, about Mizrahim, about Ashkenazim, about whatever, okay? It's inevitable. All of us think about other people in frames. In project on other people, our previous life experiences, all the stereotypes that we have. No one comes completely neutral, like a blank page. So what we have to do to teach our volunteers in the support line is how to filter out all their own, as I said, stereotype, previous life experiences, and try to be open to those of the caller. I hope I made myself, that it made sense what I said. This is the only way that we can respond to the actual need of the caller and not just say what we believe, what we think, but to
thank you.
Open to...
I understand what you said. I was wondering in regards of your organization. I think you have some statistics. I don't know how bad is the situation with LGBT people, with all the diversity, or is it good, or is it not good, not bad, but it could be better? What's your view on this subject?
So I would answer very shortly, because there are other also questions. There are each year the report center, the Mirkat Center. This is not the support line, but the reports an annual statistical report. So you have, it is found in the Aguda website. So you have very specific data for this, which I think is the solution, is the source which will help you the most in this regard. Okay, it has diversification in according to age group, according to regions in Israel, according to different kind of discrimination and so on, so forth. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see what our LGBT plus community is very small. Isn't there a risk that a volunteer will answer a call from someone they know? I wouldn't say that the LGBT community is very small. I'd say that maybe the activist community or the people you will meet in the different groups, in the different, I don't know, applications or Facebook groups or so on is limited, but this is the nucleus of a huge community that most of it is still in the closet, or most of it you wouldn't meet in the, I don't know, the meetings or the groups or the social groups or even in the parties and so on. So I'm not sure about whether the community is so small, but of course there is a chance that a volunteer will answer a call from someone they know. There is such a chance, and if I can tell you that in the last 10 years, I think this has happened twice, and we are talking about 10 or tens of thousands of calls. So I said this is not the major challenge that we are dealing with. If both the volunteer and the caller say, "Oh, I know your voice. You are Moshe. You are Chaim," then the volunteer can give the call to another volunteer. I should say it's never one volunteer each shift, each evening. We are always 3 volunteers every evening. So a possible solution is to just transfer the call to another volunteer. But what is most important to say is that all the volunteers are, we work under strict confidentiality policy. And this is not just a saying. All volunteers sign a legal agreement, document, a secrecy and confidentiality agreement. And this is part of the support line has a moral code, like that exactly specifies what does it mean, secrecy, and what are the guidelines for being a volunteer in the support line. So we had never, as far as I know, in the 17 or 18 years that I have been a volunteer in the support line, we haven't had a case of a volunteer giving information or being on the street, or if he recognizes a caller and say, this is Moshe, I know, and then he goes to a mutual friend and says, Moshe told me. No, it's not. It has never happened to the best of my knowledge. What languages are spoken by the volunteers? Okay, Hebrew, of course. I would say most of the volunteers would speak English. And we have some volunteers that speak Russian. But unfortunately, at the moment, we have only one Arab-speaking volunteer, and he's currently in the training program. Although for many years we tried to recruit volunteers from the LGBT Arab community in Israel. The thing is, if you ask, for example, about Russian-speaking LGBT, and there is a huge Russian-speaking community in Israel, so we have Russian-speaking volunteers, but we learned that it is not practical to make something like, I don't know, Russian Sunday, saying, for example, or advertising that each Sunday we'll have a Russian-speaking volunteer. Why it is not efficient? And we try to do that along the years, to do things like that. Because always what happened is that we had a Russian-speaking volunteer on Sunday, and then the Russian-speaking caller would call on Monday or on Tuesday because he haven't seen the publication. It just doesn't work. The Arab-speaking community is a very, it's a big problem. And I'm happy to say that we have now a cooperation with the LGBT Center in Haifa, Beit HaKeilot, trying to develop a specific LGBT support line for the Arab-speaking LGBT support line that will be part of Yesh Im Mi Ledaber, but run by Beit HaKeilot. It's a cooperation. It's not simple to open kind of such a subdivision, but it's something that we try to do, and I hope it will work. What else? Can you say when the line is open? Amharic, Ethiopian, no. I'm sorry. I would wish that, but it all comes out to who are the people who come to the recruitment, to our recruitment days. And we try, whenever there is a new class of volunteers, we try to advertise, and we try to advertise in Arabic, and we try to, and I personally, for example, for the publication for this training class, I personally contacted a prominent activist in the Arab LGBT community and asked them to send out the word that we are recruiting and so on. So we make a lot of effort to make the support line more diverse. I can tell you, and one thing that I am very proud about and that we worked really, really, really hard to achieve is that we have a very good female presence in the support line, about 40%, and in the current training class, program, we have equality, 50%, let's say, male and 50% female, and yeah, something like that. Can I say when the line is open? Every Sunday to Thursday, so weekdays from 7:30 to 10:30 in the evening. So in the evenings, and we answer both. We have a telephone line, we have a WhatsApp, we have email and Facebook, which of course email and Facebook operate all the time, and we also have a chat, a designated chat program, which is embedded in the page of the support line within the Aguda website. Because when people write us in WhatsApp, we can see their number, and people are very upset. We don't keep the number, we don't publicize the number, we don't keep track of the number, but people are very worried about that. So we developed the chat program that allows people just through the Aguda website to contact us without us being able to see any identifying detail at all.
I think we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately.
Okay.
So I just posted into the chat window the Facebook page for Yesh Im Mi Ledaber. So you can go to facebook.com/yesh.ledaber. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Gil, for his time and for talking to us about this. It's an amazing organization, it's an amazing project. And thank you for spending so many years of your life looking after it. So the community is a better place for you. So thank you very much. And thanks to everyone. And thanks to everyone who joined us.
For your attention.
So next week we've got another one of these. We are happy to welcome Avi Sofer, who's going to give us a bit of a history, a potted history of the LGBT community in Israel and how the organizations began and so on. So I'll be posting that on Facebook and other places, emails and so on. So hopefully we'll see you then as well. But thank you very much, everyone. And we hope you have a good week. All right? Take care.
Thank you.